Yo, what's going on, guys? Today we have a very interesting video to take a look at. I made a video a few days ago talking about a journalist who claimed that the reason people dislike Chikorita is because they're sexist, and well, we basically have a video form of that exact same argument today. But somehow this video manages to be even worse than the article was. It is one of the most disingenuous videos I have ever seen on this platform, and I actively search out stupid videos on my channel every day. Like, that's literally what I do. So that is really an accomplishment. Like, we are talking straight up Neanderthal logic today, but I don't want to waste much time. Let's just go ahead and get straight into the video.
I love Chikorita. I love Chikorita. I have a tattoo of Chikorita.
Out of all the Pokemon you could get tattooed on yourself, why would you pick the worst starter and like the least cool looking starter? Like, you could have at least done like a Blastoise or a fucking Charizard or some shit, but you really went with Chikorita? Bruh.
I have a full team of shiny Chikoritas. My secondary channel is called Cecily Loves Chikorita.
Why would you like a shitty starter this much? Like, genuinely. This is an obsession at this point.
Go subscribe.
Keep dreaming.
And when she was revealed as one of the starters in the upcoming Pokemon Legends EA, this was my reaction. We are catching Pokemon. Chikorita! Chikorita! Todo tayo, Chikorita! I went online to celebrate and talk to other Pokemon fans about the incredible trailers we just saw. And then I made the mistake of logging into the mental health website, and I was welcomed by...
Wait, you're really surprised that people don't like Pokemon with shitty stats that don't look cool? I mean, what incentive is there to pick Chikorita? The other two starters have way better stats, and they look cooler. Most Pokemon players, if presented with 3 options for starters, are not gonna look for the least cool looking one with the worst stats. If you want to pick Chikorita, that's completely fine, and I have nothing against you, but this is such a cope-ass video. Like, you're literally so upset over people not liking Chikorita that you bring social issues into a game made for like 8-year-olds. Do you know how insane this looks from the outside looking in? Like, the argument that people just hate Chikorita because they're sexist is the epitome of Twitter logic. I swear the invention of Twitter must have lowered the average IQ by at least 5 points.
Totodile, great. Tepig, amazing. But Chikorita? Chikorita, are you kidding me?
I do find it really funny how you cut that guy off before he goes on to actually say that he likes the evolved form of Chikorita. I guess that didn't fit your narrative. And is this really what we're getting offended over? A video that's obviously a guy exaggerating his opinion? Like, do you think he's genuinely this mad about Chikorita?
And I was just confused to see so much hate directed specifically at Chikorita. Like,
it's a grass-type starter, but not only is it a grass-type starter, it also has shit stats and doesn't look cool. What is there to be confused about?
But this was an unusually strong amount of hate. The type that isn't really usual for Pokemon. It reminded me of something that I couldn't quite identify yet.
Like facts and logic?
Something weird was in the air. This wasn't usual slander, this was harsher.
Bro, are we really gonna sit here and complain about the fact that people are being harsh to fictional Pokemon? There has to be something else you can direct your energy towards. This is literally PETA-type behavior. I remember when PETA basically tried to get outraged over the fact that in God of War Ragnarok there's a dog that's chained outside and they cried that it might get cold. Y'all realize this shit ain't real, right? At the end of the day, what we're talking about is lines of code and pixels on a screen. And y'all are getting this heated over it?
This is certainly an interesting way of looking at it.
No, I actually think it's a very insane way of looking at it. Like, this is not a normal way to react to Pokemon.
Could the explanation for this unwarranted hate for one of my favorite Pokemon be rooted in something that the gaming community knows far too well? Could it just be hating things that are made for girls?
The only way you could come to that explanation is if you're on drugs. Now, I feel like she has to be at least a little bit rage baiting. There's no way she unironically thinks this. And if she does think this, like, the best advice I can give is you need to, like, touch some grass. I know that's ironic coming from me, but you need to take a step outside, just feel the breeze of the wind, touch some grass, get some sunlight, because clearly you don't leave your house. And speaking of people not leaving their house, do you ever notice that people like this never make these sort of arguments in real life? You only hear of shit like this on the internet. Because people who make arguments like this, they have at least a little bit of self-awareness to know that they'd look literally insane if they were to act like this and say shit like this in real life.
Wait. Before you click out of the video, press the dislike button and leave a very impolite comment. I would just like to call your attention here to the title of this video. Do you see it? It's a question mark.
Ah shit guys, looks like we can't criticize her because she has a question mark in her video. It doesn't matter that you put a question mark in your video if you spent the entire video basically implying that people hate Chikorita because they're sexist. This reminds me of the little drama I got into with Trump Card Media reviews like 2 weeks ago. The dude had no idea what an implication was.
Am I saying that it's definitely surely rooted in misogyny? No, I'm not.
Yeah, you're not saying it, that's true, but you are heavily implying it, so it's pretty much the same thing.
What I really want to try to do here and understand better is if this disproportionate hate, at least from some people, might have its roots somewhere else other than just personal taste.
Yeah, spoiler alert, they don't, because there's tons of other Pokemon that are way more feminine looking than Chikorita, and some of them are beloved Pokemon.
But it's an interesting question, right?
I wouldn't use the word interesting, I'd use the word very stupid. Well, that's 2 words, but you get what I mean.
It can definitely get us started on a path to learn more about the series, about gaming history, about marketing, and about, well, sexism.
Yes, because the best way to teach people about sexism is with a game made for 8-year-olds.
I'm here to entertain a possibility.
Yeah, maybe it's possible that like 3 people on planet Earth hate Chikorita because it's a girly looking character. But I don't think there's enough people for you to justify making like a 33-minute video on this shit.
And try to understand why some people might think that my poor live Pokemon is being the victim of misogynist attacks.
I mean, if we're gonna be honest, we all know the answer to that question. They spend 14 hours a day behind the screen on Twitter. They also like to victimize themselves whenever possible, because, I don't know, that's cool to do nowadays. If you are one of these people, please listen to my advice. Go outside. Get some fresh air. It will do you a world of good. Even if it's just like a 1-hour walk every single day, you'll feel much better about yourself. Because it's very clear that if you're saying shit like this and thinking shit like this, you are depressed. Like, let's be honest. And I'm not even trying to be funny when I say that, I genuinely mean it.
To understand Chikorita hate, I think we need to look first at weird Nintendo commercials from the 90s.
No, that was not me, by the way, who put the audio only in the left ear. I guess she missed this in the video editing process?
The Nintendo and Sega neck-to-neck competition was probably the defining aspect of the gaming industry in the years leading up to Pokemon's creation. In order to compete against a blue hedgehog that's gotta go fast, Nintendo needed to up their game. They pivoted from their family-oriented marketing to some more aggressive strategies by launching the Play It Loud campaign. Red, cool, skateboard, Charlie Brown Jr. This campaign was aimed at Nintendo's core audience, which was young boys.
You really think Nintendo's core audience is 13-year-old boys? Nintendo has always catered to families. It's games you can play with your kids, play with your parents. That's literally how I started out, is playing the game with my family.
Maybe it's better if I just show you some ads.
Are we seriously going to pearl clutch over a joke made 35 years ago in an ad that was completely harmless? And what the hell does this have to do with Chikorita? I mean, we are talking about 2 completely different franchises here. This proves absolutely nothing. And we are talking about a way different time period and society than today.
But why boys? Like, why are video games targeted at boys specifically? Does that make any sense?
When you actually take a look into it, it makes perfect sense. What are you doing in most video games? Driving fast cars, something that males fantasize about. Destroying shit like in Doom, something males fantasize about. Saving women, something that males fantasize about. And making money, things men fantasize about. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't enjoy video games if you're not male. It's just facts and reality.
Gaming had become a majorly masculine environment, both offline and in the ever-growing online communities that were forming. And I'm not sure if you, dear stranger line, were around back then, but let me tell you something. In the 2000s, anything that was made for girls was mocked relentlessly. Specifically 13-year-old girls. The Twilight books were constantly made fun of all the time, anywhere you looked at in 2010.
I mean, I absolutely love the logic here. Things that appealed to women in the 2010s were mocked relentlessly. And the one example she brings up is a book that was mocked relentlessly for having bad writing, not for appealing to women. Like, this is so disingenuous.
YouTubers made entire careers out of it.
If YouTubers can make an entire career making fun of your art, you need to be put in the Hall of Shame, man. That shit needs to be in a landfill like E.T.
And K-pop and tween Justin Bieber, who only started getting more respect after directing his sound to a male audience.
Or because he grew older and got better at making music? You're so desperate to make everything a gender thing. Like, if I could reach like this, I'd be able to grab a rock off the moon and bring it back down to Earth.
In the meanwhile, movies that were instead aimed at 13-year-old boys, like Transformers, had some jokes about too many explosions here and there, but never saw a glimpse of the hate that things like Twilight had.
Do you know why Twilight got a ton of hate and Transformers didn't? Because Transformers wasn't a flaming pile of dog shit. Like, surprise, surprise, bad pieces of media don't usually review well and people usually make fun of it.
Whether it's young adult novels, super hulock, or fanfiction, anything that was made with young girls in mind would suffer backlash or mockery in online and specifically gaming spaces.
Now, would you like to give some examples, possibly even a source, so I know you're not just making this up? Oh wait.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Even though teenage girls are always literally in the vanguard that dictates where the future of pop culture is headed to, they will always be bullied just for liking stuff. That's also when memes like the "there are no girls on the internet" showed up.
Are we really going to get upset over a meme? At this point, I'm just convinced that you go around looking for things to be upset by. I mean, first we had a 35-year-old ad, and now we have memes. And it's very obvious that this is a meme as well. And it's a completely harmless one. I just can't imagine going through life looking for things to get upset about.
And still today, mainstream gaming spaces continue to be quite aggressive towards women, as any woman who has ever been in a gaming voice chat can tell you. Alongside the misogynistic fiasco that was Gamergate and the woke games list that basically call any game with a female protagonist woke.
Are we seriously still harping on about Gamergate? It's been like 10 years. Let it go. You know you can immediately just dismiss someone's argument when they bring up Gamergate. Come up with something new.
I think we can all agree, being a girl and liking video games is hard.
Yeah, I don't know, I can probably think of 1,000 more things that are harder than being a girl and enjoying video games.
But let me get back to the 2000s. Gaming was heavily marketed at boys. It was an overwhelmingly male-dominated space. And this was the case even with Nintendo games in the USA.
Well guys, looks like we have some breaking news. Hobbies that appeal to males will have a overwhelmingly male fan base. This proves literally nothing.
But do you know what would happen when something that was initially marketed at boys turned out to have some aspects that were a little bit more girl-friendly, exactly what happened to Jennifer's Body in 2007, a horror movie written by the incredible Diablo Cody that was marketed as a "wow, Megan Fox is so hot" movie.
Yeah, this kinda sounds like jealousy, I'm not gonna lie.
This was me setting the stage, dear stranger line, painting the picture of the cultural background around gaming and around Pokemon in the United States at the turn of the millennium. I'm trying to say that, mostly in the early 2000s, having something made for girls in the middle of your boy product would result in hate, bullying, shames, jokes, you name it. It happened to Koha and it happened to Ellie.
You have no idea what you're talking about. Nobody had an issue with Ellie from The Last of Us.
The first Pokemon games were stitched together with duct tape and a dream, but for the sequel you can really feel that Game Freak wanted to expand. And that expansion would include everyone. Chikorita debuted in the same generation that—
Bro, are we really going to be sourcing fucking Polygon? No thanks, we're skipping this. I'm curious, how many of you guys remember Polygon's Doom 2016 video? I only bring that up because of the background gameplay I have. But yeah, I don't really value what Polygon has to say, so we're skipping this section of the video.
I think it's really interesting to hear Atsuko Nishida say that ending up with a feminine design was unique for its time. Gen 2. It shows that this was kind of uncharted territory, right? This wasn't a big concern for Pokemon in Gen 1, but Gen 2? Now we want to actively start to create some creatures for the girls to use, for the people who would choose Chris as their character.
I mean, are you trying to tell me that girls can't use the characters from Gen 1? What point are you trying to make here? I don't get it.
With Gen 2, Game Freak wanted girls to better see themselves in their games and have their own Pokemon adventures. And of course, if you want to have girls playing, you have to make at least one of the starters one that they might identify more with.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think many people care about the gender of their fictional Pokemon or how girly they look. Also, it's ironic because Chikorita is like 87.5% chance of being male, but you're acting like the Pokemon is disliked for being quote-unquote girly, despite other Pokemons also being quote-unquote girly and being beloved, when the actual reason that the Pokemon is disliked is the fact that it has shit stats and doesn't look cool. Like, it shouldn't be a shocker that people don't want to play as not only a lame-looking character, but a lame-looking character with shitty stats.
And if you, as a boy, did consider Chikorita, liked Chikorita, or chose Chikorita, you would also be mocked and judged and suffer the same backlash that Twilight did.
I mean, you would probably get mocked, not because the character is girly, but because, say it with me, it has bad stats.
In this male-dominated environment, a boy was never allowed to validate that something marketed for girls could actually be good.
But it's not good. That is exactly why the character gets hate. Now, if the character was really good and you were to try to make this argument, you might have somewhat of a point, but the character's just not fucking good.
For a boy, everything that was more female-oriented was forbidden and out of reach. So you had to double down. You had to prove you would never ever choose it. Because Chikorita sucks. It's the worst starter of all time.
Yes, it is the worst starter. It objectively sucks.
And in the comment section below, there will be a lot of people writing that what I'm trying to imply is silly. That Chikorita could never be a victim of misogyny because in the games, they have 80% chance of being male.
Do I even need to say it? How do you misread the percentage in your own screenshot? How the hell does this video have a positive like to dislike ratio?
Like, LOL. And to that I say, well, gender is not really about an arbitrary symbol they put next to your name.
I mean, it kind of does when the devs literally designed the Pokemon to be male most of the time. Are you gonna sit there and tell the developers that they're wrong? Like, who would you listen to in that situation? A random motherfucker on YouTube or the developers of the actual video game?
The Pokemon. And if that's not good enough of an explanation for you, well, I can tell you that in international dubs, every single starter has a masculine article before their name. El Bulbasaur, Cyndaquil. Chikorita was the first starter ever, and maybe the last one, to have a feminine article used before their name.
Now, I don't really know if this is true or not, so I guess we'll have to take her word for it.
You get it. you see that there are different reasons why someone, specifically a teenage boy, might like the femininity in Gardevoir but be repulsed by the femininity in Chikorita.
Dude, I hope she is not making the argument that I think she is making right now. I hope she's not talking about dudes being attracted to the Pokemon.
You understand that we're talking about different kinds of gazes,
She actually made that argument. Wow. Okay. Seems like projection to me.
right? I know you have more things you want to say. I see you typing in the comment section. You are going to say that I'm reading too much into it.
Yeah, when you go ahead and decide to bring up a bunch of social issues in a game made for 8-year-olds, just because people do not like the same starter Pokemon as you, you are reading too deep into it. I mean, if we're gonna be completely honest, nobody would ever make a video like this if they had anything going on in life, unless they want money. Which, I mean, if that's your motivation to make this video, then I completely understand. It's still brain dead, though. Now, she goes on for a little while to basically do damage control for Chikorita and say, well, it's not that bad, and like, you know, technically it's better than Charmander, and I don't really care to go over it. But I do want to highlight this statement.
Honestly, if your Chikorita is struggling against a Pidgey and a Kakuna, I personally think that might be a skill issue.
Well, that's like saying if you can't beat Radagon with your broken straight sword, that's a skill issue. No, the starter's objectively bad.
You know which other starters were victims of backlash when they were released? Delphox, who has its design heavily inspired by medieval witches and mages.
And looks like complete shit if I'm gonna be honest.
Primarina, back when Sun and Moon were released, had an intense negative reaction to it. Poplio was already disliked, but evolving into a mermaid? The Pokemon community couldn't deal with that.
I mean, I don't really see the problem with the mermaid Pokemon, but I guess people just wanted something cooler, I don't know. But the little seal doesn't really look feminine, so I don't get what your point is here.
Are you seeing a pattern here?
Yeah, all your arguments so far have just been really big reaches and stretches. That's a pattern I've noticed.
Something I really remember, and I wish I could find more material from 2014 to show, is how much of an intense backlash the introduction of the fairy type was. People said it would ruin the game, completely break the balance of the type charts, and that it didn't make any sense that the all-powerful, masculine, mighty dragons were all of a sudden weak to Jigglypuff.
Damn, those things don't really sound like misogyny to me, they just sound like a bunch of Redditors upset because they want realism in their Pokemon games. And it's funny that you had to throw in the word masculine when talking about the dragons, despite the fact that there's tons of female dragons in Pokemon as well. But if you were to bring up the female ones, it wouldn't help you with your narrative.
Making the fairy type as strong competitively as Game Freak has chosen to means not only to validate femininity in Pokemon, it is to say there is power in femininity, enough to take down legends and dragons.
Yeah, that's it, I heard enough. There is one final point I want to make before we go ahead and close this video out, and that is the fact that Chikorita actually has, like she mentioned before, an 87.5% chance of being male. Yet all of a sudden it's a female icon? Like, this shit makes no sense, dude. But like I said, we're done here. I can't go on any longer with this. This was physically painful to make this video. I literally have a headache, and I'm out of here.